I had a hunch that there'd be enough interest for people to understand that it's not just the cars a lot of the time. When you're talking about
Yeah,
sentiment,
yeah,
it's the people behind the cars and the reasons for having what they have, and you realise it gets quite emotional
yeah.
when you're dealing with barn finds and stuff
I
that's
want to talk
been
to you about barn finds. Mm.
yeah, stuff that's been squirreled away. It gets really emotional. You got sometimes it takes me over a year, sometimes 2 years actually, to convince the people to let me come and
Wow.
see the car, meet them. And people don't realize that often. Like you can't just make one call and then just turn up. It's not
Mm.
like that. There's a reason why a car gets locked away for 40 years, and we don't always understand it.
Okay, so talk us through the best barn find. Is the one
Well,
which was really, I'm not talking about the most valuable or anything, but just the
yeah,
one which you have just thought, wow, I'm so pleased we managed to do this.
there's been a few, hasn't there? I know it's an exotic, but I've done two Lamborghini Espada barn finds now, which
Wow.
is bonkers. One was in a real barn in Cumbria, the most scenic, perfect textbook barn find ever, with a really mysterious backstory that's still not entirely resolved. But the car is back on the road now, I'm glad to say. So that was so special because I thought I'm never going to get a chance to do a true Lamborghini barn find again.
Yeah.
The other Lamborghini barn find was at the Ashby Manor where um, the gunpowder plot was plotted,
Wow. Huh?
and it was actually in the building underneath where the plot room was. It's called the plot room now,
Blimey.
from with Guy Fawkes,
Yeah.
which was like, how cool's that? And again, it's another Espada. It's like, what's going on with Espadas? They all seem to be broken and pushed away and locked up. But the one that one of the ones that was one of the ones that was really emotional and beautiful as well was in Wales, and it was a lady a widow who had a 911, a 1977 or 78 911 SC in
Mm.
this beautiful petrol blue, and she was so upset. She was so in love with her husband that she'd lost, and she knew that this Porsche that had been handed down to him from his dad
Mm.
was like a member of the family. And she'd already lost him, of course, and she'd resigned herself to the fact she was going to sell the car because she wanted to give her nephew enough money to get on the housing ladder. And
Yeah.
this was the only realistic way of doing it. And all day when we were filming with her, besides the fact she was just so full of joy and just really a funny lady, and she'd had this strange story where she had a lovely escort RS 2000 that got stolen, and it got found being used by a pimp. The
Wow.
most random stuff. Yeah, brilliant. That car still exists. I tracked it down. It's actually a rally car in Wales. So she thought
Of
it had
course it
been
is. Oh, so
scrapped. It's
this is a sort of a late 70s RS 2000.
yeah, that's right.
A professionals RS
A
2000.
professionals, exactly. So it was
Yeah.
a yellow one of those with a black vinyl rim.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And she said that car is the reason why I ended up moving out of Coventry or Birmingham, wherever she lived, to Wales in the middle of nowhere. And then she her I went into her house, and her late husband's bookshelf was there next to the sort of like the downstairs toilet, and it was just all these books about Porsche and racing and engines, and it was you could tell that um, she was going to find this day difficult, and she
Mm.
desperately wanted me to get the car running, and I didn't get it running in the end, which frustrates the hell out of me. It's quite hard. It's quite difficult to get cars running sometimes, and I'm not a mechanic professionally
Yeah.
at all. So I kind of do what I think I can do, and then I leave it. So that car was beautiful. So I drove away from that happy, but also frustrated because I knew I wouldn't be able to afford to buy it. Um, and then there was a Ford Granada. There was a Mark II Ford Granada. I've always had a bit of an affinity to Granadas anyway. I've had a couple, and my dad had a Mark II estate, which this one was.
So the late 70s, early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s,
Sorry.
that's right.
Okay, fine, cool. I
So
know what you're talking
the
about now.
boxier one, and
Yeah, exactly.
that I'm still sadly the Banger Racer's favourite. And
Yeah.
but this one had been parked up for about 30 years. But the reason why I went to film it is because I'd been tipped off about it by a chap that watched the channel, who worked as a surgeon, I think, in a hospital. And one of his colleagues is a nurse, and it's her dad's car. He passed away, her mum is very old now and quite frail, and this car's been in the garage all this time. But it was a chasseur edition, and a chasseur edition I had never heard of. It turns out it had
Pause
loads
for dramatic laughter.
honestly, it was so 70s. It was like the run out really of the Mark II. So it was the 2.8
Okay.
V6. It
I
was the
can't remember
estate.
what you got extra with the chasseur.
You got your own luggage set that was color coded to the car, and the car
Did
had
it
its own
still have it?
special. Yes, it did, which
It still had
is
the luggage.
it had all of its tailored luggage,
Wow.
which fits in the side pods of the car,
Yeah.
and it was this lovely kind of weird tartan slash houndstooth material with brown inserts in the seats. I mean, the interior was one off for that model, and it had all of the extras thrown at it. It had gold alloy wheels. That's what you ordered it with. It came with gold alloys. It was brown.
Just so everybody knew that you had truly arrived.
It was brown and bronze two tone with brown and tartan interior.
Oh, I'm
With
gonna need to go and look this up.
honestly, it's a rare car, a seriously rare car, and I think they sold more in Germany than they did over here. And in Germany, they called it the Sportsman. I think it was called the Sportsman,
Sportsman. Oh,
and it has
isn't
a
it?
really natty
The
little
sportsman.
logo.
You couldn't do that now, could you? It has to be a
No,
sports
The
person.
person, it would.
be a sports person.
The Ford sports person.
Can we just talk briefly, just briefly about barn finds generally?
Yeah.
Because it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? This relatively recent phenomenon. So this country, and presumably many countries around the world, are
Yeah.
just full of cars that have been stuffed into barns and garages and workshops and lockups, and
Yeah.
just waiting to be unearthed. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Mm.
How many are out there? Are we going to run out in the next couple of years? Could it last 100 years?
I think it won't run out in the next few years.
And the secret, and I think, Johnny, what you do is it's just identify, and it doesn't have to be Lamborghinis,
No.
but
No.
something just seeing that Granada and understanding the particular context of that exact model and the story behind it. Because I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure that there are all sorts of rubbish lying behind doors which nobody would be interested in or want to try and save, and
Yeah.
that's the skill, isn't it? But I agree with you. I
It
don't think
is.
that you're going to run out anytime soon. There are just so many of these things which just got squirreled away.
It is bizarre. I mean, especially in a small country like the UK, it is
Yeah.
alarming how many things have been just put away and locked up. But I think sometimes there's two things that I love about barn finds. One of them is it appeals to my childlike curiosity, and ever since I was a kid, we used to love exploring, and we used to love cycling out into the middle of nowhere and sniffing around farmyards and sometimes finding a car in a hedge or an abandoned car at the end of a lane. And it's still just as fun for me, just like I was when I was a kid. And two, it's not always the pedigree of the car; it's the condition of the car. So I've found cars that aren't really desirable; they're rare, but nobody cares, as I call them. But they're immaculate, like they're time capsule immaculate. And just that's the part of it that fascinates me. I go, this is a car that was average at best when it was new, but somebody's locked it away and kept it for 30 years, and it's done 12,000 miles. And honestly, with a clean and some new brake pipes, you could probably use it every day for the next 20 years.